That's not what happened, sir. So, you know, people in the jail, people in the hospital, whatever, they were like, yeah, let's do an investigation into this. And they did, and they found out that James and Joyce had actually been in a relationship years prior. So, with all the evidence piling up against him, in addition to the most evidence, which was the freaking confession, he was charged with her murder and put on trial. After the 3-day trial, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. And, they called her daughter and said, hey, that was 17 years later. They called her and said, hey, we found who murdered your mom.
Oh my God.
Imagine that. Good Lord.
Wow, that's
And he
so
would have got
sad.
away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids.
I know if it
Sorry, I had to
wasn't
say it.
for those meddling kids. That is one of my favorite shows. But they say the same thing at the end, but it doesn't change. This is a really sad story, Kai. You can't bring Mama back. It's really sad.
And he killed her very horribly. Like, good Lord. Can you imagine she's stabbed in the neck? If you're stabbed in the neck, you don't die immediately. So she's suffocating, and then he starts beating her with a cinder block. And even though she was dead from the cinder block, that wasn't enough for him. He set her on fire.
And you don't think it's possible he was under the influence of something. You just don't think so.
It
No one
didn't
in their
say
right mind
anywhere that
does
he
things
was
like
under the
that.
influence, because he did it twice. He was in jail already for a second degree murder conviction. So no, I think he was just crazy.
Oh yeah, crazy is
Okay.
natural. Crazy is just natural. It's a natural occurrence. Your brain isn't working right that you were born with. Yeah, that's wow.
I mean, the brain that you were born, did you really have to put in there that you were born with? I don't think there's been a brain transplant like ever.
No, listen, this is what I mean. I'm gonna make sense of this, I promise. So you're born one way, but do you realize that over time, based on tragedy and circumstances, trauma, okay, it
Yeah,
changes. It
yeah,
changes. Do you see what I mean? So that's why
I
I say
got you.
that. Okay, thank you.
I understand. All
Alrighty.
right, next story. This one takes place in 1975 in Preston, England. A mother of two, whose name was Joan Harrison, she worked as a sex worker. So, she was probably walking on the corner, or, she could have been working in a building. But either way, she had two kids and she was a sex worker. She was raped and fatally beaten, which, just because you're a sex worker doesn't give you permission to rape her, first of all, or kill her, like beat her to death. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, she had two kids. She was out working as a sex worker. Somebody raped and beat her. They found her body in a garage. They just figured at that time, I guess, because of the time when it was 1975. They found her. They found, they saw what happened to her. So they just figured it was at this time they had the Yorkshire Ripper. So they figured that's who it was. And if you follow true crime, you know the Yorkshire Ripper was Peter Sutcliffe. So they just figured that he did it. They chalked it up to him. Case closed. Whatever. Um, by the way, Sutcliffe was, he had killed 13 women, and he was doing that between 76 and 81. So I guess they just figured like maybe this was his first one. Um, Maybe this is he was trying it out before he actually started going on his killing spree. So they just thought it was the Yorkshire Ripper.
Wow. I've definitely heard of that.
And more than likely, what they did was show him pictures, and he was like, "I don't know her." And they were like, "You're gonna confess to everybody but her. Just confess, you did her." And he was like, "I have no idea who this woman is. You're a liar." So more than likely, that's what happened. But again, they just chalked it up to him and was like, "All right, well, case closed." So fast forward to 2008. Christopher Smith, who was a convicted sex offender, happened to be arrested for a DUI. After they arrested him, they got his DNA, and that DNA matched the DNA that was on Joan's body. So while they were, trying to figure all this out, they're doing their investigation, trying to see if this Christopher Smith was the one who killed her. Why is there DNA on her? Is it Is it Peter Sutcliffe who did it? Is it Christopher Smith? Either way, while they're doing all of this, Christopher died from lung cancer. But as he was dying, or before he died, whatever, he wrote out a note, he wrote out a confession. And after he died, police found his note. So in the note, he wrote, okay, to whoever it concerns, I would like to put the record straight. I can't go on with the guilt. I have lived with it for over 20 years. I am truly sorry for all the pain I have caused to anyone. Please believe me when I say I am sorry. I love my grandkids and my daughter. I cannot go back to prison anymore. Yeah, he said, please God help my family who he worships. I have been out of trouble for over 20 years, so please, God, help me. I am so sorry. God, forgive me. I love you all forever. And that was the note he left. And so after they were able to do the DNA test, the match was confirmed, and it was confirmed that Christopher was the killer of Joan Harrison. And so the police took his note as a confession. And then the case was closed.
Oh,
So
I
that's
can't. I
terrible.
can't.
You know,
I
those two kids,
cannot. Oh my God.
those two kids grew up without a mother.
Right. And that's
And
not
and
my,
it's just like you did that. He had a daughter himself. He had grandchildren, and he took somebody's mother away from them, and he lived. I guess he was in prison before because he said I can't go back to prison anymore.
right.
But still, he was alive. He lived with this for 20 years, and then he confessed.
It's a long time.
I mean, not to say, well, this other guy, Peter Sutcliffe, not to say like, oh well, you can go free. He like killed 13 women, so
Yeah, I know. Like, oh, let's count them. Well,
yeah, it's like, well, you're still gonna be in jail, so
yeah.
we'll just take this one off for you. So it's not 14, it's 13, but still rot there. But this guy, I some of these things I don't even have words for. It's just like
Well,
I
some
don't
of
even
the
know.
sentences, I don't have words for. I don't know what some of the judges are thinking. I always wonder about
I
that.
don't know why they didn't keep the case open. They didn't really look for anybody. They just assumed it was this guy and then closed the case, and then that was it. Like,
They did.
that's crazy.
No, but remember, wasn't this 75? Or what, when was this case?
Yeah, 75.
Okay, so we didn't have forensics, DNA, and carbon dating, and all of these other, digital evidence. We didn't have a lot of any of that technology. So you got to think about the fact that it was limited, as far as how you can really connect someone to a murder, So that had a
Well,
lot to do with it, I'm pretty sure. Because I mean,
like I
think about it.
said, they found DNA. They got this guy's DNA and was able to match the DNA, which means they could have at least done some kind of work.
Yeah,
Instead of just saying, okay, well, I'm just gonna blame it on him because it's around the same time. A better investigation could have been launched. You know what
I
I'm
agree
saying?
with
And
that.
and
Yes.
actually, yeah. So
Mhm.
no, I don't know. Anyway, next story. This one happens in 2009. So a guy, and I say a guy, you're gonna see why I say this. A guy had a stroke, and I guess maybe as he was having the stroke, he maybe thought it was a heart attack or like a bigger stroke than it actually was, and he thought he was gonna die. So when they looked at his chart, his name said Michael Anderson. But on his quote unquote deathbed, because he thought he was dying, he told them that his name was actually James Brewer, and he was actually 58 years old. Now, you're going to say, well, why didn't he write his real name down? Well, he'd been going by Michael Anderson for a number of years. Actually, 30 years to be exact. So, why did he change his name? Well, he was wanted in Tennessee for the murder of his neighbor, Jimmy Carroll. So, he changed his name. That's why he did it. So, what happened? So, basically, James thought that Jimmy was trying to have an affair with his wife, was trying to have an affair with James's wife. He went and found Jimmy. Jimmy was outside, gassing up his car or whatever. So this is like literally at a gas station. And he decided he was going to shoot Jimmy because he thought Jimmy was trying to have an affair with his wife. So he shot Jimmy. right outside a gas station.
Hmm.
Then both James and his wife, so James changed his name to Michael Anderson, and his wife changed her name to Dorothy Anderson. So they both changed their names, and actually, before they changed their names, James was arrested for the murder, and I guess he didn't rat his wife out, and she ran. So he was released on bail. So he ran with her. He changed his name and ran with her. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and they moved from Tennessee. They moved to Oklahoma with their new names and started a whole new life. And so now, fast forward to 2009. He's thinking he's dying. So he told the police he decided to confess because he wanted to cleanse his soul. He said before dying, he wanted to
Excuse
die with a
me.
clear conscience.
Okay. Now it
Yeah.
matters. Okay.
So apparently, while he's confessing, his wife kept trying to tell him to shut up. But he was like, nah, I'm about to die. What does it matter? What can
I
they
mean, what
do to
does it
me?
matter?
I'm
Why would
about to
you even
die.
tell him that? I want to know what happened because I can't get it out of you from beyond the grave. So let's talk about it. Huh?
Well, that's what
Would have
he figured.
stopped him.
He wanted to go into his grave with with a cleansed soul, he said.
I don't know about the cleansed soul part, but the clear conscious part, I get that.
Even though she was trying to get him to shut the F up, he was like, "No, I'm about to die. I'm going to get my piece out." So, he said what he said, and then he survived.
That's really funny. He thought he was
So
gonna
he
die.
survived,
He let
and
it all
he
out.
was charged with murder. Yep.
Wow.
And
Let
I,
me just tell you everything so I can now go to prison.
I hope both of them got arrested because she fled with him. And, you know,
He probably told her part. Oh yeah, because she came right along with me. Get her.
yeah, she changed her name just like him and everything
Yeah,
like that. So I hope she was charged with murder just as well. But again,
exactly.
don't forget, they thought there wasn't any evidence that this guy was actually trying to have an affair with his wife. Or maybe the woman lied. You don't know. But instead of having evidence or being like, okay, well, let me go talk to this dude and tell him stay away from my wife, he was just like, I'm gonna go kill her, and that was it. Craziness.
Oh, I want to talk
All
about cons
right,
interesting.
next story. All right, this story is of Wayman Camille Jr. So he was accused of rape in 1975 by a woman named Alice Mock, and he was he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for raping this woman. So I mean, usually you're like, oh yeah, he didn't get enough. You raped her. Ah, he should have gotten more than 15 years in prison. And on top of that, Alice had said that Wayman also robbed her. So he robbed her and raped her. And it's like all you got was 15 years. Like the justice
Oh, that's
system
pretty
is just
brutal.
really
Yeah, that's
terrible.
heartless.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So fast forward, she lived her life. It's about, so it was like, so 75 to 87.
17, or no, so never mind. I don't know what.
What, 12 years?
Seven?
Yeah,
No.
12 years. Oh, good Lord.
No.
It's 12 years.
80
12
is
years.
5, and you said 7. Oh. Oh,
75
that's 12.
to
Yeah.
85 is 10 years.
That's
Plus 2
12.
is 12.
Yeah, it's definitely 12. Got it.
Welcome to Math with Ky and
I
Char.
know. Not the one and
So,
not the
yeah.
two. Get the
So
3.
fast forward 12 years, she's on her deathbed. So she's dying, just like James. She wants to quote unquote cleanse her soul. And she admitted that she had actually invited Wayman to her apartment, and she wanted him there. She wanted to chill. I think they were actually in a relationship. And she robbed him. So they were drinking, they were partying, whatever, and she actually robbed him after he passed out from drinking. But
Well, how did he have an
what
opportunity
happened
to?
but what happened was, this was back in 75,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't want her landlord to know that she had invited a black man into her apartment.
Ah.
So basically, she was white, he was black, and she didn't want her landlord to know that she had invited a black man into her apartment. because she thought she was going to be kicked out of her apartment. She thought she was going to lose her lease. So she decided to invite a black man, but then she decided to tell people that he raped her.
I got it. I got it. Because she probably would have lost her lease. Yeah.
And she didn't want him to know. She didn't want Wayman to know that she was the one who had taken